Good evening, everyone. I am Mark Stephenson, the Mayor of Maple Grove, and I welcome you to the North Metro Mayors Association debates tonight. Tonight we have a series of debates that will happen, and I want to thank you all for being here. The forum is sponsored by the North Metro Mayors Association. The association was established in 1987 to advocate for private and public investment in the north suburbs and to provide our unique perspectives on statewide issues. Our goal in sponsoring tonight's legislative candidate forum for Senate District 34 is to provide the citizens with an opportunity to learn about the candidates' ideas and positions on issues that we believe are important to the future of our communities. We will propose 4 prepared questions. Candidates were advised of the topics only received the specific questions tonight. Responses will be rotating order with set time limits on their answers. We would note that these time limits are maximums and not minimums. We regret that we cannot cover all issues of interest tonight due to time constraints as we focus city and state governance questions. We expect that there will be other forums where other issues will be addressed. We will also solicit questions from the audience. We will use as many of these questions as time permits. Please write your questions on the note cards available and give them to a North Metro Mayor Association staff member who will forward them to me. Questions will be addressed to each candidate, so please refrain from asking specific questions of specific candidates. Tonight, for the first portion of this forum, we would have the Senate candidates. Unfortunately, Ms. Westland could not be here tonight, and so Mr. Limmer will have the opportunity to make a presentation, at which time we will move on to the next set of the session. Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Mayor. As I begin, I wish to thank the North Metro Mayors Association for sponsoring tonight's forum. My name is Warren Limmer, and I am the Republican State Senator representing the people of Maple Grove, Rogers, Osseo, and Dayton. When I first think of the role of government, I first think of the safety and the future of my family, friends, and neighbors. But the role of government has grown since our founding in 1858. Our founders focused on very few issues when it comes to state government. They focused on roads, bridges, public safety, and education. Today's issues include things like data privacy, internet, air travel, healthcare, regional power grids, metro sprawl, a growing welfare population, and an all-covering national debt of $20 trillion. As a rule, I always keep in mind the verse, "To those who much is given, much is required." It easily applies to public policy discussions and raises the question, could we address our challenges a little bit more creatively, a little bit more efficiently? Take, for example, our state's model healthcare program, known as MNsure. It's Minnesota's version of Obamacare. The healthcare program right now is a virtual disaster and now in near financial collapse. To keep it going, 250,000 Minnesotans will need to pay up to 60% increase in their insurance premiums starting next year. Clearly, government-run health care is not working. To lower costs, I suggest 3 things. 1, reducing mandated coverages. 2, eliminate taxes on health care costs. 3, create tax deductions for health insurance. And to increase competition, we need to increase choices for consumers. Families should be able to choose plans and networks that are right for their unique circumstances and keep doctors that they know and trust. And as far as the economy goes, government spending should not threaten our families' financial security or those on fixed incomes. Minnesota is ranked one of the highest tax states in the nation, and we're also rated as the 47th worst state as a business climate. Our people need good-paying jobs. Our senior citizens need income taxes on Social Security benefits repealed. And our businesses need to join new technological markets. We need to reduce taxes, create reasonable regulations, and expand vocational training to be competitive. Which brings me to education. Despite recent record-breaking spending increases last year on public education, which I supported, the distribution of education dollars is uniquely unfair in the state of Minnesota. And it's due to decades of political deals that benefit certain areas of Minnesota at the expense of suburban taxpayers. We need to get closer to the goal of equalizing student funding that provides quality education for all our kids statewide. And in addition, I support local control of our independent school districts and oppose top-down federal mandates, things like Common Core, and will continue fighting for the right of every parent to choose the best education for their children. Finally, we need to address transportation. We seem to have lost our priority in our state's base budgeting, but we need to exhaust other funding opportunities rather than just a gas tax, such as the use of bonding. These are loans at low current interest rates to freeze costs and to start new construction immediately. It also creates finished projects like our Highway 610 with the ramps that are needed on the south and eastbound lanes. In closing, I wish to thank the people who live in the Maple Grove, Rogers, Osseo, and Dayton area for allowing me to represent them over these last 4 years. And if reelected, I continue the promise that I will demand that government be limited yet efficient and always be the guardian of our civil liberties. I am State Senator Warren Limmer. I'm running for re-election. It's been an honor to serve you. I thank you, and may God bless.
Thank you, Senator Limmer, for that statement. I think under our rules, we'll now briefly break so we can set up for the first House Forum session. Thank you, Senator Limmer.
You bet. Thank you.
Good evening again. I'm Mark Stephenson, the Mayor of Maple Grove, and again I welcome you to this legislative forum sponsored by the North Metro Mayors Association. As stated earlier, this association was established in 1987 to advocate for private and public investment in north suburbs and provide our unique perspectives on statewide issues. Our goal in sponsoring tonight's legislative forum for Senate District 34 is to provide citizens with an opportunity to learn about the candidates' ideas and positions on issues that we believe are important to the future of our communities. We will pose 4 prepared questions. Candidates were advised of the topics and only received specific questions tonight. Responses will be in rotating order with set time limits on their answers. We would note that these time limits are maximums and not minimums. We regret that we cannot cover all issues of interest tonight due to time constraints. We expect that there will be other forums where other issues will be addressed. So to start this part of the forum tonight, we will have opening statements. The first to go is Kristen Bonner. Ms. Bonner.
All right. I am a lifelong Minnesotan. I grew up in Richfield and graduated from Gustavus Adolphus College down in St. Peter, Minnesota. I'm the daughter of a nurse and a mechanical engineer. My family roots include farmers, small business folks, the railroad treasurer, as well as a union founder and bakers. I've worked as a project manager for almost 17 plus years, where I think that I excel with my leadership skills. I have coached diverse teams on how to work together to achieve the best solutions possible and how to get the job done. I'm very passionate about the issues in our communities, and I believe that our communities deserve someone who will work together to bridge those gaps in the legislature and get serious about the business of governing.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from Dennis Smith. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank the Forum of the North Metro Mayors Association for this great forum here this evening. Also, I'd like to thank everyone in the audience attending and for you at home watching on TV and being engaged in the issues that impact our community. My wife Sandra and I have lived in Maple Grove for 22 years. We have 2 teenage children and a golden retriever dog. I'm a local business owner and a practicing attorney. I'm completing my first term in the Minnesota House of Representatives, and it's the thrill of a lifetime, a truly wonderful experience. I led the charge on a number of tough issues, making it harder for unscrupulous attorneys to shake down small businesses for alleged violations of the Minnesota Human Rights Act. I led the charge to eliminate the 5-day marriage license waiting period, and my bill to reduce the unemployment insurance rate was signed, providing relief to small business owners, totaling $258 million tax cut. Plus, I took on the challenge of Minnesotans face with air travel. I worked incessantly to negotiate a solution on the Real ID issue. In a session that some say not much was done or not enough bills were passed, I was able to have passed and signed into law 19 bills that I chief authored, an unprecedented amount for a first-term legislator. I'm thankful and honored to serve this community, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to go back and continue to work hard for our shared values. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Smith. The first question tonight, we are going to rotate back and forth, and so the first question tonight will go to Representative Smith. The first question is, what are the top 3 issues you hear while campaigning, and if elected, what will you do to ensure that the 2017 Senate and House members work in a collaborative way with the governor and the community to address those issues?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The top 3 issues that I've heard while I've been out door knocking and been discussing with members of the community are similar to the top 3 issues that I've heard in the last 2 years as I've been at the House of Representatives. They are healthcare and our broken MNsure system. They are jobs in the economy and also education. In regard to healthcare, there's a variety of things that we need to fix. Recently, MNsure was in the news for not such good reasons. This system has proven to be broken, and the Republicans in the House of Representatives have presented solutions that can make good steps towards fixing our healthcare system for the state of Minnesota. Also for jobs in the economy, we need to continue to create an environment where businesses want to grow and expand their businesses here in the state of Minnesota as opposed to seeking other states and other countries. Also, in regard to transportation, we need to treat transportation as it's listed in our Constitution and fund it as a priority. And I look forward to working collaboratively with the Senate, regardless who holds control, as well as the governor to accomplish these goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Smith. Ms. Bonner, the same question. What are the top 3 issues you hear while campaigning, and if elected, what will you do to ensure that the 2017 Senate and House members work in a collaborative way with the governor and the community to address those issues? Ms. Bonner.
Well, much like Dennis, I think that some of the top things that I'm hearing out at the doors are there's a lot of concern over education and how that impacts our children. There's a lot about transportation, more specifically the 494, 169, 610 projects that we have here close to Maple Grove and Osseo have been a big concern, as well as a underlying concern that we are really working toward fostering the ability for small businesses to thrive are probably the 3 things that I hear the most, and a little bit about healthcare as well. In terms of those, I think that from an educational standpoint, I'm very proud that we have recently received some pre-education dollars from the House of Representatives from last year. In fact, our district has one of the highest awards in the state, which is great. We have some great things going on with Maple Grove High School, obviously being in U.S. News and World Report, but we also receive those funds because we have among the poorest districts within our confines, and those districts really need the help to give our youngest students a good education and give them a good head start. So I'm excited that the pre-K has come through, and I know, and talking to folks at the doors, that a lot of people are excited about that. In terms of transportation, I think we still have a long ways to go on looking for solutions on how to get that funded. We do have a lot of challenges in terms of the growth of our cities and how we expand and maintain the roads that we have, so that's a primary concern. And finally, I think we want to look at ways to help small businesses really thrive by providing better incentives and making sure that they can continue to create jobs as they have in the past.
Thank you. And I think Representative Smith, you get a rebuttal if you want to.
No rebuttal, Mr.
Okay. The next question would go then to Ms. Bonner. If elected, which committees would you seek to serve on and why?
I think I'd prefer to serve on the education, the transportation, and the civil law committees. Primarily, obviously, those are the issues that are important to me, but seem to be extremely important to the folks in our district as well. At the very top, from education, I'm extremely passionate about education and finding innovative ways to really provide a better future or a brighter future for our students. That stems from not only pre-K and early childhood education, but working within our schools to look at ways to have our students more prepared for college and university, better programming to help them with getting trained for future skills, particularly in the areas of science and technology and jobs that are really the wave of the future, and those are the way to really invest in our kids and give them better high-paying jobs. So I think those are probably the key issues for me in education. In terms of higher education, I'm very passionate about finding ways to reduce college costs. It's terrible that our children should be graduating with enough debt to buy a house. And I think that's certainly a concern for all folks who, as they're getting ready to send their kids off to college. So I think those are all things that we need to take a really close look at. Transportation, I haven't gone too far into that, but I think we do have some distance yet to do on that in terms of how we're going to fund it.
Thank you, Ms. Bonner. Representative Smith, the same question. If elected, which committees would you seek to serve on and why?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I'm fortunate enough to be reelected, I'm going to ask to serve on the same committees I've been on for the last 2 years. They are Commerce and Regulatory Reform, Job Growth and Energy Affordability, Capital Investment, and the fourth committee of Civil Law and Data Practices Committee. I had the privilege of serving as the Vice Chair on the Civil Law and Data Practices Committee. I seek these four committees because these committees can touch our community and help us face the challenges that we are dealing with. As a business owner and as a practicing attorney, it allows me to be able to deal with the complex issues that these committees and our state is facing. Thank you.
Any rebuttal? We'll move on to the third question then, starting with Representative Smith. Both parties agree that increased funding is needed for road and transit system improvements. How would you propose those funds be raised?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we first need to look at how how the transportation funding system works. Transportation is in our state constitution as one of the priorities for our state. And I think we need to fund it correctly. I think we need to fund it for that, with that in mind. With the advent of more gasoline-friendly vehicles and other modes of transportation that are taking hold, a gas tax simply is not the only way that we can fund transportation. We need to look at other ways within our budget to fund transportation. Specifically, this past session, the House Republicans proposed a solution to fix this. It included parsing out the auto parts sales tax, the car rental sales tax, and the lease tax on vehicles. That would have produced $6 billion over 10 years, sufficient funding for transportation. We all agreed on that. Additionally, in the bonding bill proposed, and I proudly voted for in the House of Representatives, it provided $700 million for transportation funding. Funding through our bonding bill is a wise use of that vehicle. So I think if we look at how the funding happens for transportation and we fund it first as the priority set forth in our Constitution, we'll be better off as a state. Thank you.
Same question, Ms. Bonner. Both parties agree that increased funding is needed for road and transit system improvements. How would you propose those funds be raised?
I think transportation is a key issue for all of us, and I think we all agree on that, across the board. When you consider that within the next 10 years, 4 out of our 10 roads will be considered beyond their practical use, and those, of course, need to be replaced or expanded and increased. So I think that, when we talk about how we're going to fund our transportation, some of the proposals that have come forward, it's a little dicey in sorting out the governor's proposal versus the Democratic and the Republican proposals and how those all play out. But what really I think is true is that we've finally come to an agreement on both sides that we do need to accept that we're going to take some of the money out of our surplus from the general fund, about $200 million, I think, at last account. I know the Republicans had asked for 3, and the governor and the Democrats came back with 2. My concern about using some of the funds, I really am open to the idea of looking at, as Representative Smith suggested, taking some of those funds from auto parts and maintenance on cars and so forth. However, the one concern there is that if we take money out of the general fund, that is the fund that we're using to fund basic services from education, police, safety, et cetera. And if we take money out up the top, and then we take money out later in terms of those items that feed into the general fund, we're more or less double dipping into that fund. And we may in fact be starving our general funds for education and other issues. So I think we need to do a little more to look at how we can come up with the possible funds for that. And I think that there are other options that we will have to explore.
Any rebuttal, Representative Smith?
No rebuttal, Mr. Mayor.
I like that. No rebuttal by anybody tonight. The fourth prepared question will first be for Ms. Bonner. You can expect 3,500 bills next session. Each one is important to someone. When it comes to fiscal policy discussions and priority setting, how would you represent and advocate for your district? Ms. Bonner.
Well, in terms of my priorities, I think we've covered them already, education, transportation, small businesses. Those priorities are pretty clear for me. In terms of how I'm going to advocate for them and so forth, I think, the thing that differentiates me, in all honesty, is that, I've spent my career as a project manager coaching my teams on how to work together and get the job done, how to find the best solution possible to get those things done. And I know that collaboration and communication are not necessarily the keys to success in the legislature at present, but I think I bring that to the table. And I think that having the ability to advocate for the folks that are literally at the doors is, to me, the opportunity of a lifetime, in all honesty. And if I can make one bill that goes through that really impacts the lives of those around me, I would consider it a great honor and a great success. So I think that at the end of the day, we do deserve representation that's really going to fight for us at the Capitol and work together collaboratively to make that possible.
Thank you, Ms. Bonner. Representative Smith, the same question. You can expect 3,500 bills next session. Each one is important to someone. When it comes to fiscal policy discussions and priority setting, how would you represent and advocate for your district?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is an accurate number, 3,500 bills. I think maybe we may have exceeded that this past session. And I take pride in reading every bill that's before my committees and also every bill that I vote on. Not everyone in the legislature can say that. That's something that I learned from the Majority Leader Pepin, and that was a good work ethic on something to follow on. And I wish more representatives and senators would follow that. In regard to determining which ones are important for the community, I rest on what I've learned in regard to the discussions with people from the community in regard to healthcare and jobs in the economy and education. And it takes hard work and a collaborative approach. With the number of bills that I was able to pass and become law, and the other bills that I was able to get through the House of Representatives, I demonstrated an ability to work with the other side of the aisle and also people within my own party There are sometimes divisions within your own party. That's talked about some in the papers, and it's interesting news. And I've demonstrated an ability to work with them as well as people who have a little bit different view. In St. Paul, we agree on far more than we disagree, and I look forward to the opportunity to go back and continue the work of our shared values. Thank you.
That concludes the sort of prepared question portion of our debate tonight. We'll now move on to the audience question portion of the debate. So if any of you have other questions, please give them to a North Metro Mayor Association staff member, and we'll get them asked. But we'll start with those questions now. The questions have a 1-minute time limit for each of you. The first question would go to Representative Smith. There is a growing concern about the Met Council in this area. What concerns and what changes, if any, would you support and address in the legislative session?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The concerns about the Met Council are not unique to our great city and community here. There's many areas throughout the metropolitan area that are concerned about their overreach. And the biggest fundamental change we can make with the Met Council is to have the people on the Met Council be accountable to the citizens of the state of Minnesota. So we need to, I think that would provide the best and easiest way to fix the problems is that we have a direct, we have them voted into office. Right now, the governor appoints people on the Met Council, and while we thank them for the service, their work goes largely unchecked, and having that direct accountability to the citizens, as other elected officials have, is the best way to produce accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, for you, Ms. Bonner, there's a growing concern about the Met Council in this area. What concerns and what changes, if any, would you support and address in the legislative session?
Again, I agree with Representative Smith in that I don't think that's necessarily unique to just our particular community. But one of the things that I do think is that we have not done enough to partner with the Met Council and work collaboratively. Certainly there are solutions that we need to work on in terms of, how they handle future transportation issues and things like that. I think that we have to accept that there are challenges that we have to think about the immediate term, not only but the immediate term, but the future. And we need to be able to balance those. And again, I think it's a matter of being able to be more collaborative and working together with the Met Council to determine what those issues are and potential solutions that benefit both the communities at large as well as the greater metropolitan areas.
Thank you. The next question from the audience will go first to Ms. Bonner. The question is, progress has been made with providing access to college-level courses in high schools, but are we underinvesting in providing technical skills or classes and learning opportunities in our high schools? Ms. Bonner.
I was talking about this very thing recently. I think that, yes, in fact, we are, the truth of the matter is that everyone is a unique individual and everyone has their unique special talents and skills and interests and things like that. And I recall even as a child, my sister used to say to me, well, I don't get as good a grades as you, and I'm never going to be as successful as you are. And I said, here's the thing. When you find what interests you, you will succeed, and you will do that. And sure enough, she found her niche, and she got straight A's. But I think it's important to remember that we need to invest more in those technical skills for students that may not necessarily be ready to go to college for a 4-year education or on to be a doctor or a lawyer. Absolutely.
Same question for you, Representative Smith. Progress has been made with providing access to college-level courses in high schools, but are we underinvesting in providing technical skills and learning opportunities?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This past session, I was able to serve on the Job Growth Committee. I was able to hear and see firsthand about the massive skilled job shortage that we have in our state. I've been in a variety of discussions with the Hennepin Technical College and the Hennepin Community College and other institutions like that that provide these type of vocational skills. We need to do more at the high school level, not only to provide those types of educational opportunities, but also promote and advocate that those types of professions are honorable. And it's a very viable way to produce and become a very contributing member of society. It seems sometimes our high schools are fixated on going to college, and that's important, and that's a good fit for some people. But with our skilled worker shortage in our state, we really need to be spending more time on that. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question from the public is first for you, Representative Smith. Many people think that Highway 610 will be completed soon, that 610 will be connected to I-94, but the project won't be completed. If elected, what will you do to secure the $45 million needed to finish the project, plus find funding for the other needed projects in the North Metro area?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was honored this past session to be able to chief author the bill for providing them funding for 610, which will fully connect it to 94. I'm very familiar with how in a couple of weeks we're going to have the grand opening for 610, but maybe what's not so well known is that it's going to provide 2 access points to the freeway. I drafted a bill, and Majority Leader Pepin was second on the bill. I was very happy to have her support with that. And this would fully connect the 2 roads, 610 and 694, 94, and also continue Highway 30 to come up to the bridge. So we need to continue to work on funding for our area. It's often historically, and also in this past session, that funding for the Northwest area is sort of shortchanged. So working very hard on this bill is something I look forward to do in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bonner, many people think that Highway 610 will be soon completed, but 610 will be connected to Highway I-94, but the project won't be completed. If elected, what will you do to secure the $45 million needed to finish the project, plus find funding for the other needed projects in the north suburbs?
I think that we do often consider some of those core areas within the metropolitan area and the outer ring suburbs here do tend to get a little bit shortchanged in terms of their funding and so forth. But what we have to consider too is that a lot of these roadways that come right through our district are major corridors of commerce, and we use all of these areas to connect businesses from one end to the other, for example, from St. Cloud to here. And I think we need to do something to ensure that we have sustainable funding and not just sort of a one-time out-of-the-box effort.
Thank you. The next question from the audience will be for Ms. Bonner. First, do you support the Southwest Light Rail project, particularly if it impacts funding for other transportation projects throughout the state?
I do think that we need to look at various possibilities to increase our light rail possibilities throughout the metro area. And I think that the reason we need to do that is just for practicality concerns. Within the next years, we're expecting to add about 800,000 more people to the state of Minnesota. That's nearly 1 million. And while we can continue to invest in our roads and bridges, the reality is we live in Minnesota. That means we need a lot of maintenance. It also means that in order to get workers out to some of these larger corporations in the suburbs or get folks from the suburbs into the city to take part in other things, that we need to have safe, reliable, and efficient ways to do that. And so I do support light rail.
Representative Smith, the same question for you. Do you support the Southwest Light Rail project, particularly if it impacts funding for the other transportation projects throughout the state?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do not support the Southwest Rail project. I support trains, and I'm a fan of trains. I think that's a great mode of transportation. I support a multi-functioning, lots of different types of transportational modes to help our city and our state grow. But the cost of the light rail system for Southwest is just too high. There's no return on investment. There's not a significant enough return on investment. The cost of $1.9 billion for 14 and a half miles. 14 and a half miles. It's a $131 million per mile. 131 million. Compared to freeway expense, you can build a lane of freeway for $1 million, roughly. So that means we could have 26 loops, 26 lanes of traffic from Maple Grove to Eden Prairie to the airport, up to White Bear Lake, back out to Maple Grove. We need to look at how transportation is going to impact many people in the state, not just the people along Eden Prairie up to Minneapolis. Thank you.
Do we have other questions from the audience that people want to have asked? Since there are no other questions, we're going to end this forum at this time with the closing statements of each of the parties. So we will go in the opposite order of what we started with, and so we will start with Representative Smith for your closing statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also would like to thank again the North Metro Mayors Association for hosting this forum and thank my opponent for a very nice discussion this evening. If I'm fortunate enough to be reelected, I'll go back to St. Paul to continue to work on the priorities that are important to all of us. Strong, safe schools that prepare students for all jobs of the future. Tax reform and spurring savings and private sector job creation. Limited government that lives within its means, and supporting senior citizens, veterans, and the disabled. I thank you for your support, and I humbly ask for your support on November 8th as I seek a re-election for another term in the House of Representatives. Thank you.
And Ms. Bonner.
Okay. Again, I'd like to thank the North Metro Mayors Association for holding the forum tonight and having the opportunity to speak before you. I also want to thank Mayor Stephenson and Representative Smith for their participation tonight as well. Quite frankly, I'm running for the Minnesota House of Representatives here in Maple Grove and Osseo because I'm really passionate about the issues, and my mission is really quite simple. It is to do some good things for my friends and neighbors. That's it. I know it's uncommon in this day and age, but I've spent my career coaching teams on how to work together to achieve better solutions and get the job done. We need more of that in our legislature. So I think it's time to look beyond the gridlock, work across the aisle, and get down to business. I hope I'll have your support on November 8th. Thank you.
This concludes this portion of our forum this evening. I want to thank Ms. Bonner and Mr. Smith for their participation in this event tonight. And I want to especially thank our cable staff and our North Metro Mayor Association staff for setting up this forum this evening. With that, we'll conclude this portion of the forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening again. I'm Mark Stephenson, the Mayor of Maple Grove, and I want to thank you and welcome you back to this portion of our legislative forum. And I want to introduce Majority Leader Representative Joyce Pepin, who's here tonight running for office in her portion of District 34. This forum is sponsored by the North Metro Mayors Association. The association was established in 1987 to advocate for private and public investment in the north suburbs and to provide our unique perspectives for statewide issues. Our goal in sponsoring this legislative candidate forum for the Senate District is to provide citizens with an opportunity to learn about the candidates' ideas and positions on issues that we believe are important to the future of our communities. As Ms. Pepin's opponent has not appeared here tonight, we will offer her the opportunity to make a 5-minute statement about her positions and where she stands on the issues representing our community. So, welcome, Representative Pepin.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to the North Metro Mayors for hosting this tonight. It's such an honor and pleasure to be here. My name is Joyce Pepin, and for the past 12 years, I've had the honor and privilege of serving the residents of House District 34A, which includes part of Maple Grove, Rogers, and Dayton. And the past 2 years, I've also had the pleasure of an honor of one of the greatest honors of my life, actually, serving as the House Majority Leader. In the capacity of Majority Leader as well as in the legislature, I've always worked hard to listen to the needs of my constituents in this district. And I've worked to make healthcare more affordable. I've worked to improve education, to reform and improve our tax structure, and on road and bridge improvement. I'll tell you just a little bit about my personal background. I grew up in Minnesota, in a small farm in Randall, Minnesota. I attended college at the University of Minnesota, Duluth, and then I went on and ended up working in public relations and became the Vice President of Public Relations at U.S. Bancorp. And then I ran for office. Additionally, while doing this, I went on and earned my degrees in business administration from St. Thomas and a law degree from William Mitchell College of Law. So I'm currently an attorney. My main priorities, if I were elected, or my main kind of philosophy, is we'll continue to work on issues that will improve the economy, protect Minnesotans' pocketbooks, secure education funding, and bring more efficiency and accountability to government. Specifically, I'm proud of the things that we've been working on, and I will continue to work on. Some of the things I think in the upcoming session that will be important is working on lowering the cost of health care. As you all know, MNsure was passed a few years ago. Unfortunately, it has been quite a disaster. We've spent over $400 million on the MNsure program, and it's not working. People aren't getting health care. Costs are rising 50–60% per year. It's unsustainable. Some of the things we've done to work on that are encourage the governor to apply for a federal waiver so that folks can get access to federal subsidies. We've also introduced legislation to cut the premium withhold to reduce the cost of MNsure as well. And we will continue to try to work with the other side of the aisle to try to fix this system that has been broken. We'll also work to create good paying jobs and grow the economy. One of the things I've been proud to work on and proud to help lead the charge on was cutting taxes in Minnesota. We provided and voted on in the House over $900 million of tax increases that would help middle-class Minnesotans, seniors, veterans, and students. And while it didn't become law, I will continue to work on that and continue to work on things that common sense government regulations and to help our small businesses and local businesses grow and bring employees to the state and allow them to hire employees. I'm also proud of the work we've done on education. We passed historic levels of education funding, over $525 million more for K-12 education funding. Additionally, another $125 million in early childhood education funding, while working on things like licensure reform, allowing teachers from out of state to have an easier time to come and teach and to help our students as well. In addition, we passed 25% reduction in teacher testing. I will continue to fight for funding that helps our district and make sure that we get our fair funding and that the dollars follow our students here in Maple Grove, Dayton, and Rogers. One thing that's hugely important in our area is transportation funding, and that I've been working on quite a bit and will continue to work on. I've been proud to work on funding for the completion of 610, to build a new interchange at Brockton Lane and I-94, to add a new lane in between Rogers and St. Michael on I-94, and the completion of the lane on 494 between Plymouth and Maple Grove. I'm very proud of the package our caucus put forward in the last biennium, which included about $6 billion in funding for new road and bridge projects throughout the state, historic levels of funding. And we did so by doing things that I think common sense Minnesotans believe that we should be doing, using the car rental tax towards roads and bridges instead of putting it into the general fund. I think it's common sense. That's what most people think we should do. Also, the auto repair tax, that should go towards roads and bridge funding too. Thank you so much for your time tonight. I've really worked hard to be accountable to you. Please feel free to contact me with any questions or concerns that you might have. And I respectfully ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you again, Mayor, for having me here tonight.
Thank you, Representative Pepin. And thank you all for attending tonight. This will conclude the legislative forum sponsored by the North Metro Mayors Association. I want to thank, in particular, Majority Leader Pepin for being here, along with Senators Limmer and Representative Smith. I want to make sure to thank Ms. Bonner as well for her attendance here tonight at this forum. And finally, I want to thank our staff on the North Metro Mayors Association, the cable staff for making sure that this happens tonight. And finally, I want to thank our city administrator, Heidi Nelson, for all her work in putting this together as well. And with that, good night, and thank you all for watching.
Thank you. Thank you.